Welcome to the Valley Today, a public service presentation of the good folks at KAIL-TV. The beautiful Huntington Boulevard area began with the introduction of electricity in the early 20th century. The Alta Vista tract was created and a perfect place for an electric streetcar and new stately homes. Join us as we speak with David Erb, who lives in the first home built on Huntington Boulevard. Up next on the Valley Today.
Welcome to the Valley Today, and we had the distinct pleasure of being on Huntington Boulevard, and quite frankly, I've never really gone down the street before, and I have the pleasure of talking to David Erb. Now David, I'm from Southern California and we have some magnificent boulevards, but after moving to Fresno, I used to drive by this periodically and wonder what was down here. I never deviated from Cedar, but I could see there was an interesting collection of homes. Can you give us some history about this area?
Well, if you're going to live in Fresno, I think this is probably the most interesting and I think the classiest neighborhood in town. We have a very rich and varied history. The neighborhood was laid out back at the beginning of the last century. It was referred to as the Alta Vista tract. There's a gentleman by the name of Albert Wishon, who was a local promoter of this newfangled electricity stuff that was going on back then.
Sure.
He developed a partnership with a couple of fellows from Southern California, a guy by the name of Huntington, a fellow by the name of Balch, and another fellow by the name of Kirchhoff, whose names are carried forward in our streets around here. Mr. Huntington was son of the Collis Huntington, who laid out the Southern Pacific Railroad. And together they brought electrification and the Fresno Traction Company to Fresno. Fresno Traction Company is the form of transportation trolley system that was popular in Fresno at the beginning of the last century that determined the way that Fresno grew. It went from downtown here out to Sunnyside and from downtown north all the way to the San Joaquin River.
Yes.
The boulevard that we have here today that we enjoy as a city park and recreation area was the alignment of the old traction company that started in 1903 and carried people through the eastern part of town.
Now you mentioned two names that I recognize, being from Los Angeles, Huntington,
right.
Obviously. I think there's the Huntington Library down in LA, which is very big. Also Kirchhoff. There's a reservoir just above on the San Joaquin River called Kirchhoff, and it's part of the Kirchhoff-Redinger power supply plants that are on the San Joaquin.
It's all related. Mr. Wishon, who's also got a reservoir named after him up there, convinced those gentlemen to invest with him in the San Joaquin Power Company to bring electrification into the Central Valley, and this area was a bit of a demonstration project on that.
I see. Well, you know, having looked at this boulevard, and we got a truck going by, of course, driving down the boulevard for the first time, and I'm sorry, I've never done this before, there's a varying degree of homes and the ages of the homes. Now, let me go backwards a little bit. Fresno, as I could judge, was a section of beautiful homes, but they were sporadically placed. Kearney Mansion, the Mukes home. There's another home down on the San Joaquin River that they've turned into a cultural arts and information center. So these larger, beautiful homes were kind of spread out. Huntington Boulevard was an idea that was brought from these people, Mr. Huntington, Kirchhoff, and so forth, and Wishon. And they decided, is that what they decided to do? Make an elegant boulevard in town, close to city?
Well, back in the days, being located adjacent to the Fresno Traction Company, an easy form of transportation, was the core of a lot of the prestige neighborhoods in town. Huntington was part of that. Van Ness Extension was another part of that as it grew to the north. And the area is filled in slowly. You know, I'm a recovering city planner, and we try very hard nowadays to get some variety and some character in our neighborhoods, but that's hard to do in an era of tract homes. This area has managed to accomplish that by its development very gradually over time. My home, I'm proud to say, was the first one completed on the street back in 1914. We're going to have a birthday party for it in May of of this year, but there are homes that have been built over the years along this street of a variety of different architectural styles. In fact, the city's Historic Preservation Commission has recommended that this area be recognized as a historic district, and as soon as city staff completes the technical work on that project, we hope that the council will be recognizing that in the near future.
I see. Getting back to my question there, was this a knockoff of another idea that was used somewhere else? Because in Los Angeles you have famous boulevards like Beverly Boulevard or San Vicente and Santa Monica. Kind of resembles this, with the middle median being a place for people to walk and so forth. Was that the inception of this idea, to bring this concept to Fresno and implement it?
I've never heard it described as copying somebody else's idea. I think it's a unique characteristic
well, in
for
1914,
Fresno.
I would say that would be the beginning of all of this.
Perhaps. The fact is that the convenience of the traction company created a magnet for the prestige homes in the area, and the development of the entire neighborhood, for that matter. And people got to build their dream homes here. We have everything from a 6,000 square foot home that was built by Mr. Wishon on the corner of 5th Street up here that takes up the best part of a block, down to some very modest bungalows. My home was, as I said, 1914 Craftsman bungalow style, reaction to the Victorian gingerbread that was more popular before the turn of the century, and it's just a very rich area architecturally.
I could see that, again, Bunker Hill was a famous part of Los Angeles at one time, and it had more of that Victorian style thing that you'd probably see in San Francisco or something like that. California has various pockets where these traditional bungalow style homes are very popular, such as we were talking earlier about Pasadena, for instance.
I used to be secretary of the city's Historic Preservation Commission, and in that capacity I had a chance to visit Los Angeles and visit what you refer to proudly as Bungalow Heaven down there.
Sure.
And I have to tell you that my primary observation when I was down there was Fresno has miles and miles of these kind of neighborhoods. We just don't do a good enough job bragging about them.
Sure.
We have a great deal of really classy, architecturally unique homes in the older part of Fresno. This is an area that has a unique lifestyle, and as far as I'm concerned, dollar per square foot, some of the best homes in town. You can't get the kind of craftsmanship that you get in these older homes in the newly developing portion of town, unless you're willing to pay a small fortune.
Sure. Now, Dave, you mentioned that you are in the oldest house on the boulevard.
That's correct.
Paint a picture for me in terms of what it was possibly like in 1914 when this place was being built. Were we seeing the Model A or Model T? I don't remember which one was first. Driving up and down the road, canvassing for future lots, perhaps?
Yes, we were. The original builder of this home was the Blosser family. The original occupant of the home was the Howard family. Dr. Howard ran his practice out of this home. When he started, he was the only house on the street. But Mr. Wishon followed him very shortly thereafter, and the rest of the homes filled in gradually over the years.
All right, so now we are from 1914, #1 house on the street, to some of the other architecture I've seen around here. What do you think the parameters are here in terms of age of houses, starting with 1914?
We started in 1914, and there's been some houses built in the 1970s on the home, filling in some of the last remaining lots. I don't think there are any vacant lots available currently on the street, but it's an area we're very proud of. And that gradual development along the street is part of what gave us the range of architectural styles. On the streets north and south of us, Balch and Kirchhoff, there's much more uniformity with the Craftsman bungalow style, because that was the style that was in vogue back in the early days of the last century.
I get that, and I'm glad that you brought up the parameters. How long is Huntington Boulevard from end to end, do you
Precisely
think?
1 mile.
1 mile.
Makes a great jogging path,
Sure does.
which if the camera were to turn around, you can see people jogging here all hours of the day and night.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful pedestrian environment. The track team Roosevelt practices here regularly. I've seen mothers out with their baby carriages at 11 o'clock at night.
Well, you know, that's the beauty of these older neighborhoods, is that they have a porch, such as yours. Porch sitting. What a wonderful concept to meet your neighbors, to see the world go by, and in this beautiful setting of these trees. I'm sure that in 1914 there wasn't a lot of stuff out here, but I'm sure some of these trees do exist back to that era. They look to be over 100 years old.
They are. I mentioned earlier I'm a recovering city planner, and one of the premises of my business is the way you build your environment structures what kind of lifestyle is possible and what kind of lifestyle is impossible in the area. And you make a good point about the porches in the area. It makes for a much more congenial, neighborly kind of atmosphere in the community.
Yes, and look, 1914, it doesn't necessarily mean Model Ts. I mean, I'm sure there was some carts being drawn by horses and things back at that time.
I'm sure there were. When we're going to be doing a birthday party, I think I mentioned earlier on the party, and a friend of mine's going to bring his 1924 Stutz up here and park it in front of the house.
Stutz Bearcat, perhaps?
Yes.
Oh boy, yeah, I've seen one of those up in Dublin before, in a beautiful car museum up there. Excellent. So this mainly is this street right here. The outskirts are conjoining, but this is the one that's the jewel.
The tract is a mile long and a half a mile wide. We go all the way from Kings Canyon up to Tulare, from First to Cedar. But the center of the tract is Huntington Boulevard, and that's the crown jewel of the neighborhood.
I think this is uniquely Fresno.
It is uniquely
Fresno.
Fresno.
And because it was
absolutely.
done in the turn of the century, well, in the teens, it set the benchmark for these bungalow style homes. Can you give me one more quick elaboration on the bungalow style again?
Well, the bungalow style, it's actually a little bit more than a style. It's almost a philosophy. The style, the architectural style that preceded bungalows was the Victorians, which was made possible by the industrialization out there. They could turn out gingerbread like it was going out of style because it was all machine made. After a while, people got tired of that and they wanted to go back to a more, dare I say, honest architectural style that emphasized the individual craftsmanship, hence Craftsman Bungalow. They got back to more simple lines, more oneness with nature. It was an architectural movement. It was almost a political, sociological movement at the turn of the century.
I see. Now, in 1914, when your original home was built, first one on the block, what was the travel time like to get to downtown? Because I would say that we would be considered on the outskirts of downtown at this point. Well, back in 1914.
At the time, this was the first original subdivision outside the original town site of Fresno. I can tell you from personal experience that the walking time between here and City Hall is 15 minutes. But if you're in a hurry, you could have gotten the traction company and probably been there in 5.
I see. Now, this neighborhood, because of its uniqueness and the style of homes it has in it, is it a carry-off from previously built neighborhoods, or was this a trendsetter at the time when it got going? Because you can come up, say, Van Ness from the Tower District, and you can see smaller incarnations of this bungalow-style home. I'm just wondering who came first, or how did this style get kicked off?
I think in some ways it was a bit of a trendsetter, but remember what I mentioned to you earlier. The Fresno Traction Company started in downtown and created two arms, two directions of growth for the city of Fresno back in those days. One went straight north, the other one went straight east. This was the eastern arm of the thing, of that development, and Van Ness Extension and the Tower District and Old Fig Garden were developing shortly on the heels of this kind of neighborhood. Some of it developed in the city. Fig Garden, of course, developed in the unincorporated areas, but they were following the lead of the Fresno Traction Company, which established the pattern of growth in Fresno.
Now, I'm not from Fresno originally, but I've fallen in love with it over the years. I've been up here since 1988. How did you discover Fresno, and why this boulevard?
Well, originally I am a Pennsylvanian. And when I graduated back in '68 with a degree in sociology, I decided to join the VISTA program, leave the coal regions of Pennsylvania and come to California to save the poor folks out here.
We were a wild bunch back then.
And I was assigned to work in the community of Avenel for a year. After that, I went to graduate school in city and regional planning at Fresno State, and the rest is history. Got a job first with the county and then with the city. And spent 25 years working with the city on the various elements of their planning process.
And with that story, I imagine that there are similar stories on Huntington Boulevard. People have discovered this as kind of an oasis of beauty and greenery and the trees. And you are responsible for the Huntington Boulevard Historical Homes Association, I believe it is. Homeowners Historical Association. Can you tell us a little bit about that conjoining of everybody on the street? And before you answer, I imagine that there's a fairly diverse group of people that live on this street. It's not just one flavor of people. I've been watching people walk by or jogging and driving by, and there's quite a collection of people. And a lot of people like to cut through this neighborhood because of the beauty of it.
One of the nice things about this neighborhood is the extent to which our association helps people pull together and work on neighborhood projects. Our association was formed back in 1987 on the heels of some of the activities that were done back in the bicentennial.
And I did say that correctly, Huntington Boulevard Homeowners Historical Association.
You got it. That's
all right.
It's a historical association, yes. Not a, anyway, yeah.
And if anybody was interested, if you were lucky enough to get one of these calendars that was sent out, I fortunately received one that has beautiful pictures drawn about the neighborhood. But allow me to let you continue about the association, please.
We have 121 homes on the boulevard, and that calendar shows some of the drawings that were done by Mr. Hansen, an artist for the Fresno Bee, and on a rotating basis we feature the various different homes on the boulevard. We have been a focus of interesting social activity over the years. We've had 6 American presidents hosted on the street. We had 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats.
For a benefit dinner, perhaps?
Staying here, visiting the area. They were hosted in some of the homes. Some of them just were putting in an appearance. But we had Herbert Hoover, Nixon, and Reagan from the Republican side. We had Roosevelt, Johnson, and Kennedy here most recently.
Quite a collection of people.
We did. This was the place to come.
Yeah. So you, in the association, I imagine you create events or are in part responsible for the formation of committees and things that promote this area?
We have a collection of committees working on different activities on the boulevard. We have elected officers. I happen to be vice president of the association, responsible for pushing our historic district project. We do summer ice cream socials. We used to do an organized candlelight Christmas program in the area, which
I was going to ask you about that because you said be careful walking in my house and my front yard. There are some post holes for my Christmas decorations.
If you don't want to decorate your home and you're considering buying the area, you just don't want to come here because you don't want to do a bah humbug. No. If you're with the program and you move into the neighborhood, you better get out, dust off the Christmas decorations and get with the spirit. It's a wonderful walking environment at Christmas time.
Is that something that just everybody just migrates to automatically, or do you have to get out of an association meeting and saying, all right folks, this year's the theme is such and such?
It's varied over the years. Sometimes we've been organized about it. Sometimes it's just a little bit ad hoc what we do. The association takes the lead on decorating the street lights down the boulevard, or down the median of the boulevard, to kind of create the theme. And at the moment, people are just encouraged to do a good job individually, and we're encouraging people to compete with each other.
Very good.
Try and do good decorations.
Don't get away from me there.
Okay.
All right. I imagine because this is a 1-mile stretch, that it could be closed off at either side. Have there ever been a block party or some sort of bigger festivities besides people driving by looking at Christmas decorations and so forth?
In the fall, I think it's the first weekend of September, we usually have it limited access for a mile-long yard sale in the area, which is very popular. Brings no more than 10 or 20,000 people down here, and it's food vendors and people get out their antiques, and we have a good time.
So the residents are comfortable with that kind of activity because it promotes the neighborhood, keeps
Sure.
it in the limelight, and quite frankly, the city does its part to keep it clean and neat.
The city has designated the median island essentially as a city park. And they do a very good job of maintaining the landscaping out there and keeping the street in good order. We appreciate the partnership that we have with the city of Fresno.
Now, unfortunately, this show is going to air a little later in the month of May, but you're doing something special in May. Could you tell us about that?
Well, in keeping with the fact that the home just turned 100 years old, we're going to have a birthday party in the second weekend of May to celebrate our home's 100th anniversary. I'm not going to live here forever, and we're going to be looking for the next fortunate owner of the home, and we're going to be inviting all the folks in the neighborhood to come down and share some liquid refreshment and some hamburgers and just get social in the area.
Oh, doesn't mean you couldn't have a 101st birthday party,
well,
too.
That's true. It's going to break my heart to consider moving.
Are you really
from this
considering? Because I can't imagine going anywhere else on this corner. I've been inside your home, in the living room inside with the windows. How many windows does your house have?
41 windows.
41 windows.
I just finished washing them, so I know that for a fact.
Remember when you're squeegeeing and washing windows? He's got 41 windows. Well, sitting inside there and looking out at the boulevard with the established trees, and the way the leaves are falling and so forth, it's just, I can't imagine not wanting to just sit there and read a book and just look out periodically at your front yard.
Pastime. My favorite
absolutely.
pastime.
Beautiful. Any other notable things coming up here? I read here that the fellow who did these drawings put this caption on it: Huntington Boulevard homes are a cultural journal, or journals. So I interpret that as being each home has a story to tell?
Absolutely. One of the nice things about that calendar is that it gives a little bit of the history of each one of the homes in the area. We've got everybody from our founder, Mr. Wishon, and his history in the area, the Gottschalk family, and a variety of other local notables in the area.
So it's not just Fig Garden and Old Fig Garden that gets the notoriety. I believe Huntington Boulevard would be paramount in this whole...
We consider ourselves related to the Fig Garden neighborhood. They have a completely different style. Since they developed in the unincorporated area of the county, they don't have the sidewalks, curbs, and gutters that makes this a little bit more of a friendly pedestrian environment that we have.
Well, the wide boulevards, wide sidewalks, the ornate street lights that I remember as a kid before they got the fluorescents adds to the charm, and I've driven by here at night before, and it's almost like a painting and a glow in the night of that, hearkening back 100 years ago to simpler times and just a casual lifestyle.
That's what makes it such a congenial, pedestrian-friendly environment. For walkers, we've got a bike path in the area, and just a great place to live.
And we're going to look inside your house on our extra shots. The interior of your home is what's very unique. We were talking about the outsides of these homes, but to get inside, such as you invited us into yours, the woodwork in these places is amazing. And as you said, some people find that old woodwork and they paint it white. Why would you take away the decor and the color of that original wood?
God forbid. As nice as this home is on the outside, when my wife and I first got a chance to view it inside, it's what made the sale. And we've had great fun over the last 24 years trying to restore the interior back to its historical integrity.
Well, you know, we're going to post some website information and phone numbers. Do you know anything off of hand right here? Because I kind of caught you off balance here with some of that information. Maybe
well, you surprised me on that score. I don't have the website memorized. There is one.
We'll drop that in there. Is there a phone number for the Historical Society, perhaps, that we could find in here? And if not, we'll post that as well.
There is, but and I don't have that memorized, but since I'm an officer of the association, my number is 474-3181. Feel free to give me a call anytime, and if you have questions, I'll answer them, and if I don't have the answer, I'll figure it out.
All right, well, thank you very much. You know, this has been very enlightening and something I had never done in 25 years of living in Fresno, and I'm thoroughly charmed by this boulevard.
Thank you, sir.
I look forward to coming down here perhaps for Christmas and looking, and maybe any of your other activities that come up.
Stop in. We usually have a punch bowl warmed up.
All right, well, thank you very much. This has been a very cordial and warm visit to Huntington Boulevard. We appreciate you joining us, and thank you for joining us on The Valley Today.